Okay, thank you. All right. Taught a couple classes through the training, had an opportunity to integrate. Oh, good. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm guessing it's Andy Ford, but there's a lot of Andy Ford. So if it's not, whoever it is, thank you. Okay, Lisa Westerfield, can you explain the importance of learning the rolling pattern? Yeah, so these rolling patterns are come from developmental movement. And developmental movement is simply a study of the movements that happen when you progress from being a newborn all the way up to walking. And there's very specific rolling patterns that happen at different ages. Of course, every child is different, but what can happen a lot of times is some children skip crawling and go straight to walking. Or, so when babies, how like doctors say, make sure your baby's doing tummy time. We want adults to be able to do that as well. Like you want for your whole life to be able to lie on your belly and put your hands on the ground and be able to lift your head and chest up and look around and see what's around you. You want to be able to roll from your back onto your side when you're in bed and not have somebody have to, do that for you. Or when you're on the ground, roll from your back to your side in order to be able to sit and then stand, or even roll from your belly to your back or your back to your belly. I work with a lot of clients one-on-one, and one of the great things about the Pilates equipment is that I have, some clients that really struggle with either getting up and down off the floor, or once they're on their back, rolling onto their belly. And so rolling patterns, I think of them as basic human movements and owning the transverse plane. So, if we were like steel robots, we wouldn't be able to do basic life activities. So, rolling requires spinal flexion as well. And I think a lot of people start to lose that. So, if I'm on my back and I can't roll over, that's a skill that I want to learn how to do, right? Otherwise, if you imagine somebody who, maybe had like a Harrington rod in their spine, or they don't, and they still can't just be on their back and like get up, right? That requires spinal flexion. That's a rolling pattern. So if you want to dive deep into this, definitely check out DNS, Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization. There's even one of the videos that I recommended for the intra-abdominal pressure. If you look, he's actually done a video for every stage of like every month of the baby to the walking toddler developmental movement patterns. When I took the training, we did them all. So I hope that helps answer that question. Is it okay to use a strap in the figure 4 when someone cannot grab their foot with their hands? Or would you recommend that they grab their shin instead? What if they can't grab that with the opposite arm? Would that mean they're not ready for the exercise? Thank you. Yeah, being able to grab your foot in a figure 4 requires a certain amount of mobility. So, if they don't have it, there are so many cool things that you can do to help them work up to getting it. There's also, lots of somatic exercises that involve that same external rotation of the hip without having to hold your foot. And so that's what I usually teach. And then, we would work on it with different preparatory exercises, like loading, bands, all kinds of things. So yeah, whenever somebody can't do something, I'm always just like, oh, this is so amazing. Like I have a million exercises of things we can do, and regressions that let's play with and, show you success at things you can do that are very similar. And if you want to work up to it, we'll work up to it. I do think, one of my clients does not, like, she can't sit in a chair and do, this type of a seated thing, which means she can't, put, like, put her shoes on and off and tie them. She wears slip-on shoes. We're working on getting her there because that is something she wants to be able to do on her own. So yeah, if there's something within a somatic sequence that's not possible, just pick a different somatic sequence that addresses the same directions of movement, and think of it as a really good opportunity to get creative with ways you can progress that person towards something like that if they want to go there. How do you learn how to cue somatically for all the different yoga postures? Yesterday, you talked about how to cue during a crunch movement. Can you choose to focus on any part of the body when practicing any posture to help with interoception? Okay. So how do you learn how to cue somatically for yoga poses? I don't really, in the same way you would cue somatically for a somatic sequence. So say if I'm in triangle pose and, and I say, what would happen if you bend your knee a little, right? And then it changes the pose. So, because these poses have specific aesthetics, I think it's harder to somatically cue because you're going to change the pose. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that's what will happen. So you could be like in triangle pose and be like, well, what would happen if you put your hand behind your head? And, how would it feel to rotate your spine a little bit? So there's all these ways that you could, encourage exploration with those kinds of somatic cues in a yoga pose, but just know it's going to change the pose. Whereas in somatics, right, there's not a predetermined way the thing is supposed to look. Whereas with a yoga pose, there is. So I don't think it's right or wrong to do either, but yeah. All right. Can you provide a resource for anterior, posterior sling systems? Yes, definitely. Let me type that in the chat box. Let's see if I go to chat. Okay, so Andrei, Andrei, and then Vleeming. If you Google his name and then you type in, like anterior, posterior, oblique slings, all kinds of good stuff pops up. Yeah, and he's brilliant. He's written a book, I think it's called The Spinal Engine, that's really famous. Okay. I have what kind of somatic movements would you recommend for someone with a single or double hip replacement? Again, scope of practice, so I wouldn't. I don't diagnose or prescribe exercises. That would come from their PT, and then I would speak to their PT, and they would tell me, like, oh yeah, we're working on clams, or, oh, we're working on single leg stand.
So I would let the clinician decide if they have already done all their physical therapy and they come to me, then we would just try things based on whatever issues or problems. If they're like, oh, I really want to be able to go hiking for a mile and, a half a mile I'm tired. And so then I would say, okay, well, I've got some things we can do that'll help. Got it. When you shared about renaming corrective exercise to preparatory exercise, you mentioned interviewing someone for your book. Who was that? Yes, let me put that in the chat box. Let's see, chat, here we go. Her name is Jo, and Elphinston, Joanne Elphinston, and she calls her brand GEMS. Because it's like Joanne Elphinston Movement Strategies or something like that. She's brilliant. She's incredible. So yeah, definitely Google her, check her out. Okay.
Are most people able to roll and hold onto the feet with both hands? Yeah, this is pretty similar to the question that was already asked. So some people can, some people can't. Whenever people can't do something, it's a perfect opportunity to come up with all kinds of regressions that you can teach to them and progress them towards that thing if that's something they want to do. Is there a catalog of somatic sequences that you recommend? Not that I'm aware of. You know, I did mention that there are somatic sequences in the back of the somatics book by Thomas Hanna, and there are somatic sequences in the back of Todd Hargrove's book that I linked and put a link to. So those two books have somatic sequences in the back. I am a video learner, so I really don't like learning movement from books, which, you know, is funny because I'm writing a book about movement, but my book has sequences in it for people who like to learn sequences from books, and I'm going to film those sequences, so they'll be both. But the check recheck must be a passive supported lying down pose, or could it be more active? No, absolutely not. Right? Remember we did Groundhog Day, which was really active. Today, our recheck was the rolling figure 4 roll, which I think is active. So no, absolutely. You can make it anything you want. It's just a before and after to notice the difference. Would it be appropriate to make up your own somatic warm-up movement pattern, or would you recommend using one already established by an expert? You know, I mean, I think I mentioned how there's nothing new under the sun. And, you know, usually when we think we came up with something new, somebody else has already done it. So with that being said, I like to learn things by, you know, those 3 things: first imitate, then integrate, then innovate. So depending on where you are on the spectrum, if you like to, you know, just skip right to the innovate, try it. Like, you'll know whether or not it works or not, because they'll either your students will get results or they won't. They'll give you feedback. So I think it's a personality decision. Is there consideration for somatics in larger bodies? You know, I work privately with some clients that are larger body, and I find that it's the same situation as any other regression or progression. Meaning, you know, we all are different, and so we all have different challenges and different things that we need as far as regressions go. So when I work with somebody privately, yeah, it's so much fun to work with somebody with a larger body, because you get to be really creative. And in a group class, I know there are teachers out there that specialize in teaching you how to teach group classes that are appropriate for all size bodies. And so, but I'm not an expert in that area, so I always refer people out to those training programs. How did you first introduce the concept of somatics to a group of students who were just used to the aesthetics or wanted the sweat-inducing aspect of power yoga-like sequences? I loved your sweaty sequence today. I know the topic of not overwhelming, scaring the students was brought up, but I'm inquiring in terms of changing of languaging and marketing. There's just so many classes referencing vinyasa and mindfulness, but the term somatics seems to be more known in the teacher sphere than with the students. Great question, Julie. So I've always taught for the last 10 years public classes that were not Vinyasa flow. So my class is called Yoga Deconstructed, and you know, all my students knew that the class before me was a Vinyasa class and the class after me at the gym was a Vinyasa class, but that mine was, and then I would describe the definition or the description of my class. They already saw it in the sheet before they came in. So yeah, it was easy for me to incorporate somatics because I was already incorporating other types of mindful movement because the class is called Yoga Deconstructed. So they were used to me throwing in some Pilates or throwing in some mobility drills or throwing in some Pilates exercises to deconstruct the yoga pose. So adding somatics to help deconstruct was a no-brainer because it was relaxing and it felt like yoga in many ways. So I think making sure that your class name is reflective of what you want to teach. So, if you're not teaching vinyasa, make sure the name of your class doesn't have the word vinyasa in it. And then as far as me introducing them to new things, I would always just lead by example and say, hey, I've been taking Feldenkrais classes once a week for the last 2 years, and there's some things I've learned that I think would be really helpful for you all. So we're going to spend the first 10 minutes of class doing some of those things today. And then after class, I always talk to them. What do you think? How'd you like it? Was it useful? Was it not? That sort of thing. I teach teenagers that feel stressed out and unfocused. I am also continuing a trauma-informed class. Are there any movement sequences that are good for relaxation and embodiment? I think all of the somatics movements and sequences are really good for relaxation and embodiment. With that being said, everyone has different traumas and everyone is going to have different triggers. So when I do a body scan of lying on the sand, and I think it's completely relaxing and it takes me back to being on a vacation, somebody else, something really horrible might have happened to them when they were lying in the sand, and therefore it's actually not trauma informed. And again, I think that goes back to this idea of you can really only help people when you work with them one-on-one, because there's a conversation and they could say to you, like, this is not working. Whereas in a group class, it's a group class. We do the best we can. But yeah, it's never going to be individualized because you're teaching one thing to an entire group of people and hoping that it's helpful. What other verbs or terms do you typically incorporate in your somatic cues? I know common ones are notice, pay attention, what if. Gosh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think I say the word, what happens when you try this? What happens when you... So I think I use what happens a lot. This is a great question. You're more than welcome to, go back and listen to the cues that I use in the pre-recorded sequences and in the lives. I'm a total nerd. So when I say imitate, integrate, innovate, I literally, when I discover a teacher and I like the way they cue, I will pull out my laptop and type word for word what they said and how they said it, and maybe say it that way for a while and see how it goes over with my students, and then go from there. Maybe change it, make it more my own. But I do that a lot. Just, listen to how other teachers cue, and then, pick what I like and I don't like. Okay. So I don't see any more open questions, but I'll wait in case there are more. I'll take a peek in the chat box. I can't stay. Yes, thank you. Oh, I'm so glad you found it useful. Andy, I'm assuming it's Andy. Yeah. All right. With your privates, are you directing mostly? Because I teach so many different modalities, my clients have experienced all kinds of things with me because I just know what their goals are and what their challenges are, and I just bring to them what I think is going to be the most useful and helpful, and then they let me know. So my private clients, I teach them anything and everything depending on what's going on and what they want to work on, from kettlebells to dumbbell weightlifting to Pilates on the mat or on the apparatus to yoga. I teach them somatics. I'll do yoga nidras. I teach them preparatory exercises I've learned from physical therapy. I mean, it just is endless what I share with my private clients. But at the beginning of every private client session, I always say, hey, how are you doing? What do you want to focus today? What do you want to focus on today? And then I'll say, is there anything you definitely don't want to do or anything you definitely want to make sure we do? And then that's how I decide what to teach for their session. So I hope that's helpful. I see, directing versus demo. Again, it depends on the client. So in my book, I talk about learning styles and how I think it's important to teach towards all different learning styles. So, some people are visual, some people are kinesthetic, some people are auditory. Most people are all of them. And it helps, say, if you see something, but then you also hear cues that bring what you saw to life. And so I customize it to the client. Some of my clients really respond well to more visual demos, others just verbal cues. So yeah, I customize it to whatever's going to help them learn the thing that they want to learn. Do I ever use music? That's a good question. I don't typically use music, but I'm not against using music, and I enjoy music. It's funny, I taught classes at Equinox for 10 years. We moved here in 2010, and over the last, the pandemic started in March, I'd say the 4 to 5 months prior, or maybe even 6 or 7, I started using music. And I think it was because I created this program for Equinox called Best Stretch Ever, and we used music. And I was like, this is kind of fun. Let's bring music back. So I guess I would say normally I don't, but sometimes I do. Does that mean I'm making things up on the spot in my private sessions? When you say making things up, I'm teaching things that I've done in my body many, many times before. And I'm teaching things that I've taught other people many, many times before. What I'm making up on the spot is, based on what I see that they are struggling with. So, or they've told me they're struggling with. And so sometimes I'll come in with a plan of exactly what we're going to do because they've already said they want to work on X, Y, and Z. And so I've got the plan of, these things are going to all help you with X, Y, and Z. But sometimes, we get to the third thing on the plan and something happens where they're like, oh my gosh, this is helping so much. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's spend an extra 10 minutes doing this thing. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how it works. Yes, I'm responding moment to moment to what I see. But I didn't always do that because, I had to follow a very strict plan in the beginning because I didn't know enough to do it that way. And that was fine too. My clients, I would still change gears or switch what we were doing if something was not feeling good to them or causing any sort of pain, of course. But yeah, I was way more structured and planned more at the beginning. Now I have a plan, but I can easily change it because I know more. Let's see. I mean the live yoga classes with a somatic intro. I did not see them in the course platform. I only saw PDF with class outline. So the live yoga classes with the somatic intro are recorded. Let's see, Serena, I know you can jump in and let me know when those get uploaded into the course for them to watch, or if they are already. And Andy, Sandy, just didn't find it. So that's a great tech question. You will get the recording and the video. Maybe it's not there yet.
Katrina, I'm sorry. I'm responding
about how you became a movement educator. I feel like a mirror what you are doing, but without having the years that you have. About 5 years for me, 8 years teaching yoga. I teach yoga, obviously, but I also coach kettlebell lifting, calisthenics, bar, weightlifting as a functional training specialist, jack of all trades type, and also movement nerd, just like you. I'm guessing maybe this is Maud, but yeah, this is a great question. It's been an ongoing process. I will tell you that the other side of like, you have all of the training in different movement modalities and you know how to teach them all. The other half of it is the marketing and selling and business part. Before I had this career, I worked in corporate world and sales, and I had my own jewelry design line, and so I learned how to do those kind of things, not digitally. I had to learn everything online. I would say that is oftentimes the missing piece. And if you're looking for somebody to like help coach you with the business side of things, I always recommend my colleague and friend, Nikki Nabalevi, because she's incredible. I will type her name in here, Nikki Nabalevi. I always do business consults strategy, but like she has a monthly group where she does it all online, and so it's more affordable than say doing like a hour-long session with me. Yes, so search her. Yes. If people don't have a sliding wood floor for some of the sliding movements, what would you recommend? Okay, I think I mentioned this yesterday. We've outlawed them in California, or at least I thought we had, but we got a delivery the other day that had plastic bags. But yeah, if you just get like the small bathroom size trash bags or shopping plastic bags with handles and tie it around your ankles so that your feet are enclosed in the plastic bag. That works. I taught a little class for Yoga International that way in the old house when I had carpet. Other options are always like paper plates and sliders. But yeah, I find that the just tying up some sort of plastic bag around your feet and even maybe your hands works well on carpet. So you decide what to do at the moment. What if the client wants to do something you are not prepared for? Do you improvise? How would you handle this? Let's see. I guess because my clients usually, they come to me because they don't really know a lot about movement. Other than whatever their goals are. So I don't have clients that are like high level athletes, that are like training for marathons or, wanting to like up their PR with their weightlifting. All of my clients are older, I would say 45 and up, and want to get out of pain, want to move better, and just want to get stronger and more mobile. And so I know how to do that. And then, I don't really like if somebody were to recommend me and that it was just beyond my scope of what I'm good at, I would just refer them out. So yeah, I would think, I think that's the best thing. If you get a client who says, like a new client, I want to learn how to do X, Y, Z, and you don't know how to do that, just be like, I have a friend who can do that. If it happens in the middle of the session, you could always say, you know what, I actually don't know much about how to improve people's planks or pull-ups, but I'm going to do some research and we'll work on that next week in your session. Today, let's do this, In my experience working with several local PTs, I've been very unimpressed. Yeah. They don't incorporate brain-body connection and neuroplasticity. Any tips on how to find a PT who practices a more, biopsychosocial approach? Any particular training someone might have that I can look up? Such a good question. Yes, well, because of the pandemic, physical therapists that aren't close to you locally, but are biopsychosocial informed and incorporate brain-body connection are all doing telehealth sessions. So now is actually a perfect time to recommend somebody to do a session with them over Zoom rather than in person. And then, of course, if the person really is like, nope, I do not want to do online, it has to be in person. What I would do is find somebody that you know is really good that isn't in your area and ask them if they know somebody that is. So, I recommended, I talked about Shelley Prosco and Marlisa Sullivan and Neil Pearson, who have the book Yoga and Science and Pain Care. And I'm sure you could reach out to them like on their website and ask like, hey, do you know anyone? I live in wherever, Detroit. And then I don't know, like Gregory Lehman, has his Reconciling Pain Science with Biomechanics. I don't know if he has like a list of PTs that have taken the course. But yeah, and then also Facebook groups. If you're in any Facebook groups, I know the two main ones that I find the most useful, there's one that's called Yoga and Movement Research Group. It's got 30,000 people in it on Facebook. Diane Bruni runs it. And you could post something like that in there. On the Pilates end of it, there's a group called the Contemporary Pilates Haven. And that's another great place to, ask if somebody could recommend somebody for you. You've already mentioned a couple of names, but can you give us some other teachers that you would recommend from Yoga International for us to try? Other somatic classes we can see there. Yes. Okay, Serena, you can help me out with this. There is a woman on Yoga International, and I'm blanking out on her name, but she has I think at least 10 somatic classes, and I've taken a couple of them and they were incredible. She is a dancer, I believe, and a dance professor.
Is it Dr. Jamie Stover-Smith?
Yes, thank you. How do you say her name? Is it Mikkel?
Oh,
anyways,
Mikkel.
Yeah. So I would start there for sure. Because she's got a ton of somatic classes on Yoga International. Okay, I will wait and see if there's any more questions because we have until 4:30. If not, we'll end it. We'll do a group photo, but hang out and see. Do I ever use any types of adjustments? I think you mentioned early on that in somatics there are no hands-on type adjustments, but perhaps in the yoga type of poses you might be teaching. Do you offer adjustments pre-COVID, of course? Yeah, great question. In my private sessions, I do hands-on, obviously now, not now because of the pandemic, but that's because, I ask permission and all my clients have been with me forever and they like it. And, always say, yes, I want that. Like I need that feedback. In a live group class, usually no, but if I do something, it's like, say for example, somebody is in plank and they're just really sinking down, right? I mean, this is a classic one that everyone does. What I do first is say, hey, you know what? I want to see you guys really get some more protraction in your plank. So let's pause a moment, grab a blanket or a block, put it on your upper back, and then I want you to feel that you're able to push that block or blanket up to the ceiling. And then I see, and if that worked, great. If it still didn't work, I might come around and say, is it okay if I tap you right, next to your spine between your shoulder blades? Because that's the area I want you to bring your awareness to so you can really get some more protraction and not collapse as much in your plank. So I call them tapping cues. It's just kind of like, knock, knock, but I just always ask permission. And my live classes in person at Equinox, it was a noon class at Santa Monica. It was usually pretty small and same people for years. So I try not to when I don't know people. That helps. Okay, Jamie Stover Schmidt. Yes. Okay. And then Mikal. Good, good. Oh, thank you, Julie. Big hug. Yes. Oh, and I think this is Andy or whoever it is. Thank you. I'm glad. Good, good. Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, wait a little longer and then we might wrap it up. Nikki is excellent. Yes. Yeah, she's incredible. And Julie, if you need help with Pinterest, definitely check out Julie. Okay. How do you create names for new poses, movements you create? I love your creative names. You know, my brain is weird. They just pop into my head. I make these random connections. There's a lot of things I'm really horrible at, like math. But for some reason, I'm really good at coming up with names. Usually I'll just think about the shape of whatever it is we're doing and relate it in my brain to something that is either like an animal or pop culture related, something that just has like a fun vibe to it, which usually animals and pop culture have fun vibes to them. And I think that's kind of where my brain usually goes. But I like alliteration too. So, you know, if I think of maybe the traditional way somebody would describe the movement, and then I'll like pick a word that starts with that same letter. But yeah, it's probably also just like a muscle or a skill. The more you do it, the easier it gets. But yeah. You've been creating great social media posts. Any tech tips for creating short videos with text? Yes. So I use an app on my phone called Video Shop. I'll put it here, Video Shop. And I've been using it for the last at least 3.5 years. I am not tech savvy. I just really know all the ins and outs of Video Shop because it's super simple. You know, you can trim video, you can add text in it. It's on my phone. You can speed things up. You can take away the sound. You can change the format if you want it to be 1:1 for Instagram versus say 9:16 for your story. So yeah, Video Shop is great. With the new Reels thing, that was a big learning curve. Those are probably those super short videos, 15 seconds. I create those in Video Shop as well. I will like either create a 15-second video or like take a chunk of an old video and trim it down to 15 and then chop it into 3 5-second videos. It takes so long. It's such a pain. But Instagram is favoring Reels right now. And then, you know, you can like flash up your words on those, the first 5, the second 5, and third 5, and you can add music. It's a really tedious pain in the butt process. But yeah, that's what I do. It's, yeah. I'm from Indonesia. Oh, okay. Diana. Oh, I'm thinking you're from Gedang Gedang when I was in Indonesia last September, which was such a wonderful experience. Yeah, so if that is you, hello, I miss you. Yeah, catch up when it works for your time zone. Okay. See one new message. I am Madison Campbell. Got it. The chat box does not work to reach assistance. Please have somebody contact me. Okay, Madison. I know somebody will see this message right here in the chat box and help you out as soon as possible. Okay, it seems like you're an Energizer bunny. Are somatics your go-to for down-regulating practices? Yeah, it's funny. I'm an Energizer bunny when I'm doing things I like to do, and I like to teach, and I like to move. But yeah, definitely not an Energizer Buddy when I'm doing things I don't like. But I use somatics all the time to help me down regulate and calm down. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, this was great way to spend the weekend. Sending love to Toronto. I don't know if that is you, Allie, but yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll wait just a little bit longer, but this is my first time teaching, a 12-hour continuing education weekend. I normally teach these. I travel and teach them in person, and this has been an incredible experience. Of course, it's not the same as in person, but it's wonderful. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I can feel that you are all there, even though I can't see your faces.